Rules. It has zero welding, all straight body. It was only seatbelt. Well, here we are the day after the Demolition Derby, and by the time you guys see this, it's probably going to be about 3 days after the Demolition Derby, but that's okay. Here's the review on the Mazda. I didn't really use the front end that much. The rad support broke. I ended up hitting somebody with the front, and their bumper went underneath my bumper, which basically just took out the whole bottom plastic rad support and did a lot of damage. I basically ran over my rad. I ran out of water in the heat and the car started stalling. I did have a GoPro inside the car, but I forgot to put a memory card in it, so there is no in-car footage, unfortunately. The factory Mazda bumper actually held up really good. This is just a Crown Vic bumper that's only got 1 3/8 bolt through it in the middle, so it's just basically a skin, but if you take a look, that front bumper held up really good. The heat and the feature, I didn't even have these things tight. I just basically hand tightened them. They're just to basically keep the hood closed because I couldn't tie it to the rad support, so there's no way to really make it strong. I took one really bad strut shot, and honestly, when he hit me, it was a Camry wagon that hit me. I thought the car was dead. The wheel got ripped right out of my hand, and I thought I was done. The strut bent, the car still turned fine. No real damage happened to this car as of anything breaking to the point where it can't be driven again. What actually happened is that I got hung up. The Toyota Camry wagon's bumper came over top of my rear tire and wedged itself between the body panel and the tire right inside of here. So I couldn't move. That's what ended up taking me out. It was so muddy, neither one of us could get traction. How the back end went on this car is actually exactly how I wanted to go. It bent right at my notches, but next time I'm not going to do as big of notches. And the reason for that is because the frame is actually ripped right in half at my notches. It's split straight across. So the subframe is very solid on the backs of these, and I'm quite pleased with how this subframe went. The doors are starting to go, but as you can see, if I didn't do that self-topper, it would have been a lot worse. But the seams inside the car, down here, have not even split at all. I guess, you know what, they're starting to split just a bit. But compared to a Cavalier, they split a lot faster on a Cavalier. And one of the reasons I think they did not split is because of this unit right here. This right here is actually designed to help hold in the folding rear seats, and I left that in there just because of the fact that I thought it would help keep the car together, and I really did think it does. Gas tank protector is still floating. It's not on the ground yet, so that's something cool. Trunk folded right up in the inside, so now the heart that I had on the back of the trunk is actually facing me. Now when we come to the back, both of my pillars have basically disintegrated. As you see, all the welds kind of let go and they folded on themselves. This side here was quite catastrophic. You can actually see all the way down inside there. Like, look at my arm right up to my elbow is inside my pillar. So that there was not very good. How we could fix that, I'm not too sure. Maybe bolt the pillar seams together because they're just these crappy little tack welds that seem to rip. Rear bumper, actually, first hit I did, it came up directly 90 at the subframe. So if I get another one of these cars, which I do have a surprise coming in the next week, I will do the back end of this differently. But I'm going to cut this rear bumper off because it isn't really doing much just there like that. So I'm going to cut the bumper off. I'm going to save it because I think that's a pretty strong bumper. Driver door, didn't really get any good knocks onto the driver door. Again, rear driver door, the body panels are starting to fade. Quarter panels are gone. But if you take a look, these rear tires really did not come into the body at all. I was expecting for these to come in a lot farther and kind of toe in a bit. As you can see underneath this hood, nothing has really moved. Now that we lost the rad support, what we had to do is we had to loop the lines, and because the whole rad cradle got smashed out, it gave us a lot of room to work on it. I took the factory line, I stuffed a 24mm socket in there, and then I connected this side to it. It did hold up quite good until somebody came underneath the bumper again and hit it. I was kind of praying that I didn't lose my socket, and I didn't, so I was quite happy about that. The motor did not move. Even though it has a low aluminum motor mounts in this thing, nothing broke. Even the remote rad filler did not break. Everything basically stayed exactly where it was. Now this was a smaller show, but still it was a pretty hard hitting show. So out of this car, I kind of got mixed reviews on it. I was quite surprised about it, but when it did run out of water because the rad was gone, I had about 1 minute, maybe a minute and a half, and then it started knocking, it started sputtering, it kept stalling as soon as I let off the gas. So these motors here, maybe we could find a way to make it run better without water. It must have some kind of sensor that it's kind of screwing with. But in the Demolition Derby, a lot of wires started getting cut. Like I told you, that one guy went underneath my bumper, and what he did is he broke this wire to the transmission. So I'm not sure what that does. And he also broke the oil pressure sensor right off the actual side of the oil filter down there. So I don't know. Maybe we could do some more wiring cutting on this to see if we can try to keep it out of limp mode and try to make it run just a little bit better without water for a little bit longer. The thing that surprised me the most about this car is how the back end folded. It came up quick. It came up solid, and it basically came to a rock. And once it came to that spot, it wasn't going any farther, and I pounded this back end as hard as I could. I tried to use it as much as I could, but once it hit where it is now, it did not want to go any farther in, which is the perfect amount of fold. So as you can see, the subframe is right there, and it's farther back than the tire. So when I'm hitting people, I'm not actually damaging the suspension. I'm using the frame of the vehicle to hit people. So that is quite interesting. Still runs great. Well, this will be the last aftermath for this vehicle as of this Demolition Derby. And it is what happened to the underside. As you can see, all the control arms are made of steel and they didn't bend. The subframe actually held up really good to its mounts and everything. But here on the passenger side, we did bend a strut, and it was bent right here where it mounts to the spindle. But if you look back here, these tie rods are actually very thick tie rods, but they bent. So I will have to fix this tie rod to be able to run this car again. Even though it is bent, it did not really affect how the car drove inside the ring. I actually didn't even notice it until we tried to drive off the trailer with it. Now if you come back, the frame right here, the unibody, is still straight. Even the center sections are still straight. Even though it's rotted, it's still staying together. Rockers are still straight. Even the unibody here in the back leading up to the subframe still looks straight. And I really tried to use the back of this car as much as possible, so I am quite impressed with this. And then when you come back here to the rear subframe, all the trailing arms look to be in good shape. Everything looks to be in great shape. Now right here, this is where I put the threaded rod through the trunk. And as you can see, that helps keep the rear subframe in there much better than I thought it was going to. But overall, I think this car did fantastic. For the first one I've ever ran and the first one I've ever seen run, I'm pretty impressed. Thanks for watching Zach's Workshop. Make sure you guys hit that like button and the subscribe button. See you guys tomorrow.